Good morning from Nha Trang. It's June the 28th, I believe, 2001. I'm just going to give a fairly quick update on the visa situation for getting into Vietnam and maybe how it applies a bit more specifically to people who might want to stay here longer. As of about the end of March last year, 2020, tourist visas were no longer offered for anyone to come into Vietnam. Since that time, pretty much only Vietnamese citizens could be repatriated, or people coming on other kinds of visas, such as working visas, which I think are called expert visas, and also business visas, investor visas, things like that, which are out of reach to most people, unless if you want to work here and you have a skill and possibly a degree in something that seems to be needed here. So basically, you're not going to get into the country. It used to be easy to get visas for here. For Vietnam, you could get online visas of 30 days, 3 months, and 6 months for most nationalities, and 12 months for Americans only for some strange reason. However, whatever kind of visa you got as a tourist, it was limited to 90 days period of stay. The idea was after 90 days, no ifs, ands, or buts, you headed for the border. Maybe you just crossed it and came back the same day, did a border run, got a new stamp if you had a 6-month or 12-month visa, or you got a new visa, maybe spent a day or two in another country or whatever your choice was, and came back on a new visa and again got 90 days period of stay. As of May of this year, I think they started enforcing the reduction to only 30 days period of stay. It had been talked about earlier in the year, but they finally started enforcing that in May, which is why now people who are on visa extensions, which is pretty much anyone on a tourist visa still in Vietnam, is only allowed a 30-day visa extension, whereas previously you could get 90-day visa extensions, 30-day or 90-day visa extensions. So anyway, the future of that one is a little unclear. Possibly what they will do is allow people who say come in on a 3, 6, or 12-month visa, allow them to extend twice their 30-day period of stay, extend twice while in country, and then after 90 days, I think they would be required to leave. This is all pretty unclear because it's relatively new, very new. And the borders haven't been open since it's been implemented, so nobody really knows 100% what exactly is going to be the case in the future. So anyway, that's the reality of the visa situation at present. It will probably be at least the last quarter of 2021, meaning October, November, December, or possibly sometime in 2022 before Vietnam is going to start allowing visa for tourists. And while other countries in the area, such as Thailand and I believe Cambodia, have been already allowing tourists to come in, but requiring them to do quarantine at their own expense, Vietnam requires anyone entering the country to do quarantine, but tourists aren't even allowed that option at the moment. So anyway, eventually I believe we're going to be looking at the reopening of borders to tourists, possibly later this year, and if you have the vaccination, they might possibly be willing to to allow you to enter without quarantine, or maybe a slightly shorter one. Okay, so when visas are reinstated for foreign tourists, and let's say you're a youngster in your 60s and you're thinking about retiring, you might want to visit Vietnam. But some people say, is it a possibility to stay here long term? Well, in the past, and all I can do is go by the past, people did live here longer term on tourist visas. I believe the general routine was to get probably a 6 month or 3 month visa from most countries, maybe a 12-month visa if you're an American, and then do some kind of a border run every 90 days or less. So that is not impossible, taking a bus to Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, or in the previous days you could fly nonstop from Nha Trang to Bangkok, probably Incheon in Korea, several other destinations. At the moment, I'm not even sure about flying nonstop to Korea. I kind of doubt that. But anyway, air travel has been seriously hampered by the pandemic. So, but it is probably going to be a possibility. The chances of Vietnam starting to have a retirement visa are, well, they're discussed, let's say, although mostly in the wouldn't it be nice terms. So I don't think there's any real government study going on about potentially opening Vietnam to a longer term retirement visa, such as Thailand has, and Cambodia has some longer term visas. So it is a bit more of a headache to stay here longer term. I had considered, when I came, I flew in on Air Asia from Bangkok, and I thought, well, that could be doable to every 90 days fly round trip to Bangkok, maybe spend a few days and fly back. And it would have been a bit of extra expense, but more comfortable than, say, riding the bus to the border and then turning around and coming back. And I have met some people in their 70s probably who are single and had been living here for years, just extending their tourist visas. So it may well be possible in the future, and but it does seem like it is going to be a little more complicated in the future, in that you will, even if you have the 3 and 6 month and 12-month visas, you're going to need to deal with immigration every 30 days to get a visa extension, and then after 90 days you still will be required to leave the country. And I believe the hope anyway is that when the 30-day period of stay extensions are granted, they won't be that expensive. Now a 30-day visa extension could cost over $100, whereas the period of stay extensions, I've heard, may be relatively cheap. That I can't say, but instead of being over 100, maybe being $10, $20, $30, somewhere in that range. So everybody is speculating, or people are speculating, but no one probably has a definite answer to that. In the past, people had been doing business visas, although they had no plan to start a business. Unfortunately, the government has been clamping down on that just in the last few months, and people who were doing that have been given a denial of visa extension and have been told to leave the country quickly. So basically, you are pretty much going to be limited to tourist visas, which you'll have to do border runs for, or if you have some kind of a skill that's needed, you could possibly get a working visa. And if you have the money, you could possibly do a investment visa, business visa, if you really plan to do a business. But the old days of just having a business visa but not doing a business, or having a working visa and not working, those days are gone for getting longer term visas. Vietnam does seem to be pretty open to having people work here if they have the skills and the education or whatever backgrounds required. But there again, you would have to work, and if you're my age, you maybe don't want to work, and also it has to be something that is required, and Vietnamese do tend to work long days, maybe often 10-hour days, maybe 12-hour days, and usually 6 days a week. This may not be what you're looking for in retirement.